They say Rome is a city of emperors, triumphs, and marble. But if you were really there, you'd understand. Emperors are just the surface. The true life of Rome hid in narrow streets, crowded apartments, and bustling roads that woke before the sun. 2,000 years ago, Rome was a living organism, and each day began in the darkness. The very first to stir wasn't an emperor, but a baker. He rose before dawn when the city was still asleep and stoked his ovens. The warm smell of fresh bread spread through the damp stone streets, winding under arches and between insulae, multi-story apartment buildings where more people lived than in some small modern towns. Insulae were fascinating architectural creations. The first floors were for wealthier families, while the upper levels were cramped and inexpensive. On the top floors, wooden floors creaked with every step, walls were thin, and stairs were almost vertical. Yet people were used to it. In Rome, even smoke from indoor fires felt ordinary. Bakers were the first to start the day, but almost at the same time, water carriers appeared on the streets. Aqueducts delivered water from afar, but apartments rarely had indoor plumbing. So men carried large amphorae up steep staircases, delivering water to every tenant. Every step echoed as a deep thud, and combined with the movements of countless others, it created the true rhythm of the city. If you listened carefully, you could hear a living symphony. Shutters scraping open, footsteps, the wheels of carts, the soft murmur of fountains. Small shops, called tabernae, opened with the metallic scrape of slide-in shutters. Merchants prepared food, hot lentil soup, olives, and a bit of wine diluted with water. And all of this was accompanied by gentle gossip, a necessary part of city life. Romans loved exchanging news at the fountains and on the streets. One person brought word of a trade caravan, another of a fresh batch of wine from Ostia. Watching this quietly, it seemed that the city awakened together with its people. Meanwhile, on the streets, legionaries and the vigiles, Rome's night watch, started their patrols. The vigiles were part firemen, part police, part night guards. Heavy sandals, bronze clasps, short axes, all produced a characteristic sound, steady like a metronome for the city. These men saw the city awaken before anyone else, ensuring fires didn't break out and shops opened safely. Up in the upper levels, where the poorest lived, craftsmen began their day. Some were shoemakers, some carpenters, some trainers for gladiators. They adjusted their tools, checked materials, prepared for work. Even the simplest labor had importance. Roman roads, buildings, and aqueducts were often constructed at night or early morning to avoid disrupting daily life. By moonlight, workers hammered, laid stones, and measured levels with incredible precision. The roads they built still stand 2,000 years later. As dawn approached, the city fully came alive. Carts carrying amphorae, fresh food, and crafted goods moved between buildings. Merchants shouted prices, whispered gossip, and buyers exchanged the latest news. Even if you weren't part of it, you were part of the living organism, observing, listening, feeling the rhythm and sense. From afar, the bells of the Forum chimed, signaling the start of the day. The Forum was Rome's heart, a market, a courtroom, a meeting place. Anyone could voice an opinion, loud or soft, and be heard. For residents, it was the stage for life itself. Romans valued order. Every amphora bore the maker's stamp, every brick the builder's mark. Every street had a system for distributing goods and water. Even small details, debts, bread, water, were recorded by scribes. Every step, every task, Every gesture was part of a vast mechanism where order mixed with the chaos of the streets. By mid-morning, the scents changed. Bread faded, replaced by roasted meats, fermented fish sauce, and wine diluted with water. Children ran through courtyards, merchants shouted, legionaries marched, and the sun glinted off stone facades onto narrow, twisting streets. Yet beneath all this chaos was a rhythm impossible to ignore. Rome lived, breathed, moved, and each person played their role. From emperor to craftsman, baker to night vigil, close your eyes and you can still hear it. The scraping shutters, footsteps on stone, the gentle murmur of water from aqueducts, the whisper of gossip, the distant hum of the streets, and the hammering of tools. This was living Rome, and this was how it began every single day, before dawn. The sun had just begun to rise over Rome, casting pale light across the red-tiled roofs and cobbled streets. By this time, the city was already awake, bustling in a way that felt alive yet measured. Rome was not a quiet city. It never truly slept. Every corner, every alley, every forum echoed with the life of its people. By mid-morning, the forum was crowded with merchants, politicians, and citizens of all classes. The air smelled of fresh bread from the morning ovens, mixed with the sharp tang of fermented fish sauce, garum, and the faint smoke of hearth fires. If you walked through the marketplace, you could see crates of olives stacked like tiny hills, amphorae of wine lined along the streets, and jars of honey glinting in the sunlight. Merchants shouted prices, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes quietly negotiating with customers. Every stall had its own rhythm. A coin clinked, a voice called out, and the subtle shuffle of sandals across stones filled the space between. But the true magic of Rome was not only in the forum. It lived in the narrow streets, the insulae, and the rooftops. In those upper apartments where the poorer citizens dwelled, life was compact but intense. A mother kneaded dough in a tiny kitchen while her children played with scraps of wood or clay, inventing games that were noisy yet harmless. Laundry hung from ropes across the balconies, flapping gently in the morning breeze. The smell of damp clothing, mixed with herbs like bay leaves and dried flowers, created a strange but comforting scent. Even in these tight spaces, life had a rhythm, a pulse that mirrored the broader city. Meanwhile, the legionaries and city guards patrolled the streets, their heavy sandals striking the stones in measured steps. These were men who knew the city intimately. They could identify a street by the sound of footsteps, a corner by the creak of shutters, and even tell when a cart was carrying food versus wine. Their presence was quiet, yet commanding. Passers-by nodded or stepped aside, and even merchants paused briefly as they adjusted goods or lifted awnings. Beyond the streets and markets, craftsmen worked quietly in workshops, tucked behind facades. The carpenters measured and cut wood, their chisels singing against the beams. The metalworkers shaped bronze and iron, producing tools, cookware, and sometimes small decorative items for wealthier homes. Even the cobblers had their own rhythm, hammering leather onto soles while humming softly to keep pace. Each craft had its soundscape, and when combined, it produced the symphony of Rome, a constant hum that was both lively and soothing if you listened carefully. Not far from the forum, the aqueducts delivered water to public fountains, where people gathered to fill containers or wash. Some carried water up the stairs to upper apartments, while others stayed to chat, exchange news, or gossip quietly. These fountains were the heart of communication in the city, a place where the mundane and the meaningful intertwined. Even a small disagreement over the freshness of olives or the weight of a loaf could spark long conversations, and no one would leave without hearing the latest tales from the neighborhood. Lunch, if it could be called that, came early for most Romans. Simple fare, bread, cheese, olives, sometimes lentils or chickpeas. The wealthier citizens might enjoy fish or wine, but most people kept meals modest. The street sounds of the morning gradually softened as the day progressed, replaced by the clatter of cooking and the occasional shout of children playing in courtyards. Yet even in these quieter moments, the city's pulse never completely slowed. By mid-afternoon, the streets of Rome began to shift in character. Merchants started packing away unsold goods, carts moved heavier loads, and the city seemed to breathe in a deeper, steadier rhythm. Shadows stretched across the cobblestones, and the sun reflected off windows and marble columns, glinting like gold. Even the stray cats of Rome knew this time. They prowled silently along walls, occasionally pausing to watch the people below. In workshops, craftsmen wrapped up their tasks, but some lingered to finish intricate details, carving a design on a wine jar, adjusting a sandal strap, or sanding a piece of furniture to perfection. It was meticulous, almost meditative work, and the sounds, soft hammering, scraping, tapping, mixed into the background of the city like a gentle percussion. Evening approached, and Rome slowly began to quiet down. The forum emptied as citizens returned to their homes. Legionaries and vigiles maintained their patrols, their footsteps steady, marking the boundaries of order and safety. Lanterns were lit along streets and in houses, casting warm light that danced across walls and courtyards. The smell of dinner, roasted meats, simmered vegetables, and the ever-present olive oil filled the air. People ate, talked, and rested, their day slowly closing, yet the city itself remained awake in its own way. This was Rome not of emperors or battles, but of everyday life, its rhythms, small victories, and quiet routines. Every sound and scent shaped a vibrant, chaotic, yet orderly city. Even now, close your eyes and hear shutters, fountains, hammers, and footsteps, the heartbeat of Rome. As the sun dipped behind the distant hills, Rome slowly shifted its rhythm. The city that had moved, shouted, and labored through the day now took a quieter, measured breath. Merchants packed their stalls, tucking away olives, cheeses, and amphorae of wine for the next morning. The clatter of carts on cobblestones softened, replaced by the gentle hum of people returning home. From the upper floors of Insulae, children's laughter faded, replaced by the quieter sounds of families settling in for the evening. Mothers stirred pots of lentils, fathers wiped sweat from their foreheads after a day's work, and the faint aroma of roasting meats drifted up into the streets. Lanterns were lit one by one, their flickering glow casting warm, dancing light across the stone walls and alleyways. Shadows stretched long, forming patterns that seemed to move in rhythm with the city itself. Even the streets were not empty. The vigiles, Rome's night watch, began their patrols, walking in measured steps along familiar routes. Their sandals echoed against the stones, and the occasional clink of armor reminded passers-by that order was maintained even after dusk. Some guards carried torches, their light revealing closed shutters, sleeping cats, and the occasional stray dog sniffing for scraps. In quieter corners, Craftsmen lingered in their workshops. The carpenter ran a final file along a piece of wood. The metalworker hammered the last details onto a bronze vessel, and the shoemaker polished a sandal for tomorrow. These small, meticulous tasks created a private rhythm, almost meditative, that blended seamlessly with the wider pulse of the city. Even in the fading light, life remained purposeful, detailed, and calm. Near the fountains, a few citizens lingered, filling amphorae with fresh water, gossiping softly about the day's events, or planning tasks for tomorrow. The fountains themselves produced a gentle, constant sound, a soothing trickle over stone basins that became part of Rome's nocturnal symphony. It was easy to imagine that in moments like this, time slowed and the city seemed to breathe in harmony with its people. Evening in Rome also brought its more indulgent rituals. Those who could afford it visited the thermae, the public baths, where the warm water eased tired muscles and the quiet conversations offered entertainment without chaos. Steam rose in lazy clouds from the pools, carrying the mingled scents of oil, herbs, and heated stone. Men relaxed, discussed business, or simply watched the subtle dance of light and shadow across the marbled walls. Meanwhile, in the taverns and street kitchens, the aroma of simple meals filled the alleys. Bread, olives, roasted vegetables, and salted fish were enjoyed by ordinary citizens who paused briefly from labor to eat, rest, and talk. Even small pleasures, a sip of diluted wine, a bite of freshly baked bread, became meaningful markers in the rhythm of Roman life. As night deepened, some parts of the city fell almost completely silent. The upper floors of Insula were dark, except for a faint glow from a candle in a window. Cats roamed rooftops, and the occasional owl called from a hidden perch. Yet the city never truly slept. The subtle hum of Rome remained, footsteps echoing in narrow alleys, distant voices murmuring across courtyards, the occasional clatter of shutters closing, and the soft rush of water from the aqueducts. Legionaries and vigiles continued their rounds, ever vigilant. They ensured that fires did not break out, that streets remained passable, and that the city's pulse remained steady. Even as ordinary Romans rested, these guardians of order became the quiet rhythm beneath the surface, unseen but essential. In this nocturnal calm, one could reflect on the layers of Roman life. The city was more than grand architecture or political triumphs. It was a living network of routines, responsibilities, and small joys. Every citizen, rich or poor, young or old, played a role in maintaining this balance. Even the simplest tasks contributed to the complex organism of Rome, and every night repeated the pattern, quietly preparing for the dawn. As the moon rose high over the Tiber, its silver light washed over the rooftops and columns, softening the harsh lines of stone. The shadows deepened, but the city's heartbeat remained steady. From the faint tapping of tools in workshops to the whispered conversation by a fountain, from the footsteps of night guards to the distant cooing of pigeons, Rome lived, breathed, and waited for the next day. And if you walked through the streets at this hour, you could almost hear the city speaking. Not in words, but in rhythm. A constant reminder that life continued, orderly yet unpredictable, chaotic yet serene. This was the Rome of ordinary people, a city of daily victories, quiet endurance, and subtle beauty. A city that never truly slept, and one that would live on in its sounds, scents, and shadows for centuries to come. As night fully embraced Rome, the city transformed once again. The streets, quiet during the late afternoon, now held a subtle vibrancy. Lanterns flickered along the narrow alleys, casting dancing shadows across stone walls and creating a patchwork of light and darkness. The sounds of daytime commerce had faded, replaced by quieter, more intimate rhythms. The clink of cups, the soft murmur of conversation, and the occasional laughter drifting from taverns and courtyards. Public baths, or thermae, remained active well into the evening. Men and women of various classes sought warmth and relaxation, soaking in the steamy pools while talking in low voices. The scent of heated stone, olive oil, and herbs filled the air. These baths were more than places for hygiene. They were centers of social life, where news traveled, deals were made, and small dramas unfolded quietly, like whispers in a marble cathedral. Even in these crowded spaces, there was a rhythm. The splash of water, the scrape of a wooden bench, the gentle echo of footsteps along stone corridors. Elsewhere, street taverns offered simple but satisfying meals: bread, cheese, roasted vegetables, and sometimes salted fish. Wine diluted with water flowed freely, and men and women gathered to share stories, gossip, or quietly enjoy the warmth of the evening. The aroma of cooking blended with the scent of the city, creating a comforting and tangible atmosphere that could be felt on every corner. Some of the wealthier citizens dined at home, hosting small gatherings where the conversation flowed as freely as the wine. But the streets remained the pulse of public life. Musicians, often traveling performers, wandered through some neighborhoods, adding soft music to the night. A lute strummed, a flute sang, and occasionally a small drum beat a gentle rhythm. Their melodies were subtle, not intrusive, blending into the city's natural soundscape. It was an auditory backdrop for the nocturnal rituals of Rome. The closing of shops, the finishing touches in workshops, and the quiet movement of guards along the streets. Even in the upper apartments of insulae, life continued. Families gathered to eat, tell stories, or prepare for the next day. Children might whisper secrets under blankets, while parents planned chores or repaired worn clothing. Laundry hung from lines, still slightly damp, swaying softly in the night air. The city felt alive, not in the grand gestures of politics or empire, but in these small, persistent routines. The vigiles maintained their rounds with tireless precision. Their torches illuminated dark corners, and their steps echoed, providing a reassuring cadence throughout the sleeping city. They watched over the fountains, streets, and homes, ensuring that fires did not start, disputes did not escalate, and that the city's delicate order persisted. Even as ordinary Romans rested, the vigiles kept the heartbeat of Rome steady, a silent rhythm beneath the visible life of the night. Some citizens took to leisure in quieter ways. A man might sit on his balcony, sipping watered wine and gazing at the moonlit rooftops. A baker finishing late orders might pause to listen to the city, appreciating the soft patterns of life he helped create. Street cats prowled silently, weaving between shadows and lanterns, their soft footsteps a gentle punctuation in the city's nocturnal symphony. In the taverns, conversations often shifted to stories of distant provinces, tales of soldiers, merchants, and travelers. Laughter mixed with the occasional sigh, creating a rich tapestry of human emotion. Even in moments of calm, there was energy, a reminder that life in Rome never truly paused, that the city thrived not only in daylight, but under the gentle embrace of night. By midnight, the city had slowed further, but it did not stop. Occasional lanterns glimmered in upper apartments, casting soft halos onto streets below. The fountains murmured in the quiet, carrying water through stone channels as they had for centuries. In some corners, late-night workers finished tasks or prepared goods for the coming day, their steady actions creating a subtle rhythm that joined the soft, omnipresent heartbeat of the city. Rome at night was a city of contrasts. It was quiet and loud, gentle and persistent, predictable yet full of surprises. Every sound, the scrape of a shutter, the soft shuffle of sandals, the distant laughter, the trickle of water, was part of the living organism that had endured for centuries. It was a city that never slept fully, a city where every individual, from merchant to guard, from craftsman to street musician, contributed to the delicate, beautiful, enduring rhythm of life. As the moon climbed higher, the Tiber reflected its silver glow, bathing the city in soft light. Rome at night thrived quietly. Lanterns flickered, fountains murmured, taverns buzzed softly, and the city's rhythm continued under moonlight. As dusk deepened, Rome settled into a slower, quieter rhythm. The clatter of carts had faded, and the streets were bathed in the warm, flickering light of lanterns. Shadows stretched across stone walls, forming patterns that danced gently with the movement of the city. Even as most citizens retreated to their homes, the city's pulse remained steady, a subtle reminder that Rome never truly slept. In the insulae, families prepared for the night. Mothers tended small kitchens, stirring pots of lentils or roasting vegetables. Children whispered secrets beneath the dim glow of candles, while fathers repaired worn tools or mended clothing. Laundry hung from lines, swaying softly in the evening breeze, carrying faint scents of herbs or soap. Every small action contributed to the invisible rhythm of the city, a quiet harmony beneath the louder daytime bustle. Along the streets, the vigiles maintained their patrols. Their sandals echoed against stone, and torches cast fleeting light over closed shutters and narrow alleyways. They moved with deliberate precision, guarding against fires, disputes, and any disruption of the fragile order. In their quiet vigilance, they were the unseen heartbeat of the city, preserving calm while the rest of Rome rested or lingered in evening routines. Some citizens sought leisure in the twilight hours. The thermae, still warm from the day, welcomed men and women looking to soak tired muscles or engage in quiet conversation. Steam rose from pools, mingling with the scents of oil, herbs, and heated stone. The baths were alive yet tranquil, a place where stories were exchanged, deals were whispered, and the small dramas of the day were remembered and laughed over. Street taverns glowed warmly, inviting passers-by. Bread, cheese, roasted vegetables, and salted fish were shared with a few sips of watered wine. Soft murmurs of conversation mixed with gentle laughter, while the faint melody of traveling musicians, a lute, a flute, or a small drum, added a delicate soundtrack to the evening. Even the nocturnal life of the city, stray cats, roving dogs, and the occasional late worker, blended seamlessly into the urban symphony. The fountains offered calm centers amidst the darkness. Citizens filled amphorae, exchanged gossip, or paused to simply listen to the trickle of water over stone basins. These small, ordinary acts were the essence of Rome, mundane yet integral to the city's living network. Even the smallest contributions, cleaning, fetching water, preparing a meal, maintained the invisible rhythm that made the city vibrant and enduring. By midnight, Most of the streets had emptied, leaving only faint lights and soft sounds. The shuffle of a tired guard, the drip of water from aqueducts, the occasional whisper behind closed doors. Yet the city itself remained alert, every stone and corridor retaining memories of the day and preparing for the next. In this quiet, subtle music of life, one could sense the continuity of generations, the invisible threads connecting every Roman, from humble artisan to wealthy patrician. Rome at night was a city of contrasts. It was calm yet alive, silent yet vibrant, orderly yet unpredictable. Every creak, shuffle, murmur, and splash contributed to the city's living rhythm. Even in darkness, Rome breathed, reminding all who wandered its streets that life never truly ceased here. The night was a pause, not a stop, a soft exhale before the dawn, a preparation for the return of sunlight, voices, and activity. And if one listened closely, it was possible to hear the city itself. A quiet, steady pulse beneath every lantern-lit alley, beneath every shuttered window, beneath every fountain's trickle. A heartbeat that had echoed for centuries and would continue to echo, long after any individual Roman had gone to sleep. Even in the quietest corners of the city, life continued in small, subtle ways. A lone baker, finishing the last of his nightly loaves, paused to listen to the faint echo of footsteps outside his shuttered shop. He could hear a cat padding silently across the rooftops, a child whispering to a sibling through a slightly open window, and the distant clatter of a late worker arranging tools for tomorrow's tasks. Each sound seemed insignificant alone, yet together they formed a delicate mosaic of life that made Rome feel alive even in darkness. Along the riverbanks of the Tiber, a few fishermen remained, their silhouettes barely visible as they tended small nets, checking for the night's catch. The moonlight shimmered on the water, casting a silver glow over the slowly moving boats. The soft splash of oars, the ripple of water against stone, and the occasional call of a night bird added another layer to the nocturnal symphony of the city. Meanwhile, a wealthy patrician, leaning from his balcony, watched the interplay of shadows and light across the streets below. Even in night's quiet, Rome thrived. Whispered sounds, subtle movements, and life pulsed toward dawn. The first light of dawn crept slowly over Rome, brushing terracotta rooftops and marble columns with soft golden hues. The city, which had slumbered lightly under the stars, began to stir once more. Lanterns were extinguished, their flickering glow replaced by the gentle warmth of morning. The streets were quiet, yet hints of life whispered through the air. The soft clatter of pots in small kitchens, the rustle of laundry on balconies, and the distant hum of carts rolling along cobblestones. In the insulae, families began their day with routine precision. Mothers stirred dough for bread, fathers checked tools for repair, and children carried water from the fountains, careful not to spill a drop as they climbed the steep staircases. Each action, simple and repeated daily, was part of a larger rhythm that bound the city together. Even the hum of distant voices and the occasional footstep contributed to a living tapestry of sound, smell, and movement that defined Rome. Merchants emerged from shuttered shops, arranging fresh bread, jars of honey, and olives in neat stacks. The marketplace gradually filled with the quiet murmur of early buyers as coins clinked and conversations flowed softly across stone corridors. Carts carrying amphorae of wine or sacks of grain moved along narrow streets, creating a rhythm both deliberate and alive. Every sound, no matter how minor, contributed to the symphony of the city awakening. In workshops, craftsmen resumed their labor with familiar dedication. Carpenters measured beams, checked joints, and carved fine details into furniture. Metalworkers hammered bronze and iron, producing tools, cookware, and decorative items. Even shoemakers tapped leather with rhythmic precision, blending into the broader soundtrack of the city's rebirth. Every movement, every sound was a thread in the intricate fabric of daily life. The vigiles began their final patrols of the night shift, ensuring that the city remained safe as the day began. Their sandals clicked on stone, their eyes watched over fountains and alleyways, and their torches illuminated dark corners. Though often unseen, they were integral to Rome's continuity, quietly maintaining the balance of order beneath the bustling surface of daily life. As the sun rose higher, the forum came alive with voices and energy. Politicians debated, scribes recorded events, and citizens exchanged news, complaints, and gossip. Street dogs darted between legs, scavenging crumbs, while pigeons cooed and flapped across rooftops. The aromas of fresh bread, roasted meats, and olive oil mingled with the faint scent of morning dew, creating an atmosphere rich in texture and life. Even in quiet moments, the city breathed with purpose. A baker paused to listen to the soft rhythm of footsteps and the distant chatter of neighbors. A young boy balanced an amphora of water on his head, careful not to disrupt the fragile symmetry of his load. A patrician, gazing from his balcony, observed the interplay of shadows and light, acknowledging his place in the ongoing cycle. Every individual, whether engaged in labor, leisure, or observation, was part of Rome's eternal rhythm. By midday, Rome had fully awakened. Carts rolled briskly, merchants shouted their prices, and craftsmen worked tirelessly in workshops tucked along side streets. The soundscape shifted. The soft hum of morning became a lively chorus of activity. Yet beneath this vibrancy, the city maintained its underlying rhythm, the heartbeat that had persisted for centuries. Rome's streets, alleys, and squares were alive with continuity and change. Every day brought new labor, new conversations, new routines. Yet the patterns remained recognizable. This constancy was both comforting and profound. The city was ancient, yet renewed with every sunrise, ordered yet unpredictable, alive yet timeless. As evening approached and shadows grew long once more, the city's rhythm continued unabated. The cycle of work, leisure, conversation, and care repeated endlessly, a testament to the resilience of daily life. Rome was not just a collection of stone and marble. It was a living organism, composed of countless small actions, quiet routines, and subtle gestures. From dawn to dusk, through the laughter, labor, and whispers of its people, the city thrived, vibrant, eternal, and full of life. Even now, if one walked through its streets, they could hear the pulse of centuries, the clatter of footsteps, the soft murmur of fountains, the rustle of laundry, the distant hum of conversation. Rome lived in these details, in the rhythm of daily existence, in the heartbeat of ordinary citizens who day after day kept the city alive. And as the first stars would one day appear over the rooftops, the city would sleep lightly, only to awaken again, continuing its eternal rhythm, unbroken and ever present.